If you want to understand why the Finch West and the Eglinton LRTs matter, you need to understand what small actually looks like. 1% of a Toronto megaproject could reshape transit in an entire northern capital. The end of free transit in Whitehorse might not make national headlines, but locally it matters. The territorially funded free transit ticket and pass program ended on November 30, 2025, bringing an end to a temporary measure that helped low-income residents and nonprofit organizations cover the cost of bus travel. For a small northern city, this isn't an abstract policy tweak. It directly affects people's ability to get to work, school, medical appointments, and community services. The program itself cost only a few $100,000 per year, a relatively modest sum in government terms, but in a city of roughly 30,000 to 35,000 residents, that investment had an outsized impact. When your entire transit system consists of a small handful of routes running limited frequencies, every fare and every rider counts. To put this into perspective, Whitehorse Transit operates only several conventional bus routes across the entire city, with service typically running on a 30 to 60-minute headway, depending on the corridor and time of day. This is not a sprawling metropolitan network. It is a compact community-scale system. If you removed even one route or reduced hours meaningfully, a noticeable portion of the city would immediately feel it. The entire transit system of Whitehorse is smaller than the TTC's busy afternoon on Dufferin Street. Ending a fare subsidy program in a system this small has a similar effect. The change is visible, tangible, and personal because the system itself is so compact. When you live in a city of this size, transit policy is not theoretical, it's immediate. Now contrast that with the scale of the Toronto Transit Commission in Toronto. Toronto is a city of over 2.7 million people, and the TTC operates hundreds of bus routes, multiple streetcar lines, and a heavy rail subway network that moves well over 1 million riders on a typical weekday. The system spans from dense downtown corridors to vast suburban arterials. In this context, if Toronto were to cut a sliver of service equivalent in scale to Whitehorse's entire bus network, most riders likely would not even notice. That is not because service cuts are harmless, but because the magnitude of the system is so large that a small percentage reduction is absorbed within the broader network. Scale fundamentally changes perception and impact. This is exactly why the billions of dollars being spent on major transit expansions in Toronto matter so much. Projects like the Finch West LRT and the Eglinton Crosstown LRT are not marginal adjustments. They are structural transformations of how mobility works across large sections of the city. The Finch West LRT adds higher capacity, reliable east-west service through northwest Toronto, replacing crowded buses with dedicated right-of-way rail. The Eglinton Crosstown LRT, stretching across Midtown with a significant underground portion, is designed to move tens of thousands of riders daily while reshaping bus connections and relieving pressure on parallel corridors. These are investments measured in billions because they are meant to operate at metropolitan scale. The contrast is striking. In Whitehorse, a few $100,000 can meaningfully expand or contract access to mobility for vulnerable residents. In Toronto, that same amount would barely register in the capital budget of a single large project. Yet the principle is the same. Transit funding decisions reflect values about access, growth, and economic participation. In a small city, fare relief can be transformative because the system is intimate and concentrated. In a megacity, transformational impact comes from building durable, high-capacity infrastructure that reshapes the network for generations. Ultimately, the end of free rides in Whitehorse reminds us that transit operates on very different scales across Canada. What feels like a major shift in a northern capital might equate to a rounding error in Toronto's operating budget. At the same time, the sheer cost of projects like the Finch West LRT and the Crosstown LRT lines underscore why getting them right, on time, on budget, and on service quality, truly matters. When you're building for millions instead of tens of thousands, the stakes are exponentially higher, and so are the long-term impacts. I hope that you liked the video. If so, please give it a like. If you're not subscribed and want to be notified of new videos that are released, please click on the Art Toronto button here. This is the video that I would recommend for you to watch next, and I'm sure that you're going to love it. Here's the playlist for all of the latest in transit news and views that you're going to find very informative and interesting. And finally, here is the latest video. Thanks for watching and happy transiting.